update on the Shop Time Throwdown that I'm having with my buddy Jay. Here on YouTube, he's Dighsx, and I will link to him in the description below. So the contest is we have to build a clock for our shops, and I got to tell you, I'm not fully fleshed out on my thinking here, which is part of the reason why I'd love to get your input. You can definitely help me out by commenting below. Now, a little bit of background information. Back in the early 80s, for 5 years of my life, I was a horologist, something my mother still can't tell her Bible study friends. Horology is the study of the measure of time, and for 5 years, I was a clock repairman. What I did primarily, though, was repair work on clock movements. I could make any part that went inside of a clock case. Never did build a clock, as far as I can recall. Anyway, so this project is near and dear to my heart. And so the very first thing that I heard, or I was thinking when I heard about this being a clock project, was I want to make a wooden geared clock. But then I realized the challenge is to build a clock for my shop, and a wooden geared clock is not going to behave well in this environment that just has too much, well, it's not really fully climate controlled. It gets very cold, it gets very hot, it gets very humid. And we also have the issue of there's an ever-present sawdust. So that's just not going to be in the cards for this one. Let's see, what else can I tell you? You know, being a clock repairman is quite a bit different than being a clockmaker building cases. And so I'm loving what I'm thinking about here, but like I say, I still don't have it completely fleshed out. I'm back finally from 2 weeks on the road, so I hope that I'll be able to get into the shop now finally. It was down in Orlando, down in Texas, had a good time. Anyway, another issue I have here in the shop is this little clock back here, besides the fact that it's stopped, which it just needs another battery. It's so dinky. It's so small. We are right now back in my bench room. I have another room back that way behind some doors. And yeah, I can see back to this wall, but these eyes don't work like they used to. And I can't tell time from this clock. So the ultimate resting place of this clock will either be on the wall back here, which I can see from the other room, or it may be on another space in the main room. So we'll figure that out. But one thing I have decided is I want my clock to be big. I had, on one occasion as a clock repairman, I had the opportunity to help repair a tower clock in Lebanon, Ohio, in the city, I guess the city hall building. And I hope to find a picture. There is a picture of the three of us working up there in that shop, or in that space. And it was kind of fun, but it was not what I expected because, man, was it nasty. It was a pigeon roost as much as it was a clock movement. And we had to be careful because I guess 100 years ago, it was a very common illness for clockmakers to get was a lung problem that came from, I think it was mold spores that inhabited the pigeon droppings. Isn't that awesome? What else? So just a couple pictures that I gathered off the interwebs this last week sitting in my hotel room. I like the looks of this clock, and it's a big clock. The problem with this, as I considered it, was, well, I could make my clock light up, but because my shop space is not air conditioned, I leave the windows open a lot in the summertime, and I do get bugs, and if I lit my clock up, I'd have a problem with all kinds of flying insects. But I love the looks of this, and it's very classic with the Roman numerals. One quick thing to point out here, if you didn't know, clockmakers had been making clock dials with 4 slashes for the number 4, long before the current convention of using an IV. So some of these pictures you will see IV for the 4. That's not traditional in horology. Here's another one, made of wood. I like the looks of this one very much, and that one may guide me to where I'm heading. Here's another one that I like, but with the dial being dark and the background being dark, that's not going to work for me. I love the looks of this one. Very industrial, very steampunk looking. Look at the rivets. It doesn't have the Roman numerals though, but you know, this is like a clock you would find in a gymnasium back when I was in school. Here's a close-up detail of another one that has some rivets that attracted me. Here's one just painted on wood. Don't mind that one at all. Now we're starting to get into some of the ones that bothered me. And this leads to a challenge that I have for my design. You'll notice, look at that minute hand. The minute hand hardly even comes into contact with the number ring. And that's because as you start getting into these big clocks, it's difficult to find a clock movement that can handle a hand in the lengths that I'm going to need. In fact, I purchased a high torque quartz movement that has a maximum length of 18 inches on the minute hand. And that's not long enough. If my clock is going to be 4x4 or even 5x5, that minute hand's got to be a lot longer than that. Look at this one. This one really offends me. Look at how teeny those hands are, how small those numbers are. Yuck. Don't like that one at all. And maybe among the worst of them, look at that. This is a wall clock. You put that ring on the wall and then the movement hangs on the wall. Let me zoom in on that. Look at how silly that looks. Way too small. Now, contrary to what I've just said, one that I really do like is I like this kind of Art Deco style. Again, with the not with Roman numerals here. So to wrap this up or to summarize, I want to build a very large clock. Because of that, and to make it in the proper scale, I'm going to have to come up with some way of powering this clock that's maybe a little bit untraditional. Oh, one other challenge. When I leave my shop every day, I flip a main breaker that shuts all the power off. So I will not be using an electric motor. Otherwise, I'd have to set my clock every time I walk into the space. So it's got to be battery powered. That's part of my challenge. So in thinking about this, I remembered back to an article I read when I was in horology school back in 1982. And I went looking on Google Books and I found it. It was an article from the late 1800s on a mystery clock, a clock that was in the window of a shop, and it was a glass dial, and the hands were just mysteriously powered. And it brought about a whole bunch of discussion back in the day. And in fact, I ended up finding some articles from 1909 in the American Machine. Is it Machine? No, American Machinist magazine. And there was a whole series of articles on how that clock was accomplished. So I'm thinking I'm going to build my clock to be powered in this way. Now, the trick is you've got to make your hands perfectly balanced, right? Imagine that you've got a clock movement that can handle a hand that's 18 inches long. If you want to put more length on it, you're going to have to add more length and weight to the opposite side to keep that in balance, so that the clock movement is able to handle that additional weight. The problem is the more weight you put on it, now the arbor that the hand is on is going to want to bend down, which can cause problems in the movement as well. So the hands have got to be long, properly balanced, but not too heavy. So there's my challenge. I'm going to start the build this week, and I'll be ready to give you some more insight next weekend, let you know how things are going. I'd love your input. Tell me what you think. Got any recommendations on any aspect of it? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you again next week. Also, keep an eye on Jay's video. He should be posting an update soon as well. And Shop Time Throwdown, week 1 in the can.